you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join doctors Joanne and Erin as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
We are so excited for our guest for this episode. Brooke Erickson is a functional nutritionist with nearly a decade in private practice, working at the intersection of functional nutrition, circadian rhythm science, and nervous system regulation. She is the creator of the Quantum Nourishment Framework, a whole body approach to healing and restoring vitality that goes well beyond what we eat. Brooke, we're so excited. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Brooke, you and I met at a retreat with a common friend of ours, Candace Vandertholen, who Joanne and I interviewed on our podcast. I don't have that episode pulled up, but talking about energy. And you work with a lot of high functioning women who might seem like we're doing things right on paper, or might be trying to do all the things right on paper, yet we're still feeling exhausted, maybe disconnected, not getting the results that we want. And I'm wondering, is there some missing advice that the standard health input isn't giving us?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think I've been in practice for about 10 years, and over the years, I've really worked with all sorts of different people, a lot of women, a lot of high functioning women. And when we focus on too much on, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and counting calories and really fixating on the numbers, taking the supplements, we miss out on the mind-body connection, right? And so your nervous system plays such a huge role in how your body responds to the inputs that you're giving it, right? So if for example, if you're really stressed and you're trying to eat a meal, your body is in fight or flight, it's in sympathetic. So it's not going to digest that food very well. So we have to factor in those pieces, and just simply focusing on, I go to the gym, I eat, the food I'm supposed to, if you're not sleeping, circadian rhythm, a lot of the other things I work on are kind of these foundations that are getting skipped and not talked about enough, and they make a huge difference.
And you sound like you're talking about me. Like so many of us, like I've always been, like I've always defined myself as a little bit heavier. So I've always been in some kind of diet. Like I literally remember 1988, and someone said, this is the year of the AIDS, and we have to be careful because everyone is going to be round. It's something awful like that. As a very, like a preteen or something like that. How old was I? Like, I don't know, 13. And already identified as heavy, right? Like, what is that thing? Even, not that what we're talking about. But because I'm good at reframing, what it's helped me is that I've had a lifelong, practice of being mindful of my food. And thank goodness I always like to work out. Not that it was always healthy in the way my mind went about my body and all of that, but it's been pretty healthy in my older years. And I've been like the person who wakes up at 4:30 in the morning to work out in the morning, and, and you name it, all the diets. And actually, literally like 2 days ago, a friend of mine asked me, what are you doing different? Because you've lost weight and you look different and you seem calmer, and even your skin looks different. And I had to like sit down and think about it, because I don't know that I had necessarily changed what I'm eating as much. But last year I changed jobs. I left my work that I've institution for 18 years and started my practice. Not that that's necessarily calmer, but it's more in alignment of where I am in my life. I'm like in a really good place in romantic relationship. My kids are good, and I have been sleeping more. And I realized that like maybe my nervous system finally feels calmer and safer, and then my body's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And sorry that I'm like talking about myself, but it felt, if it resonated so sharply, I'm like, I imagine that like our audience feels the same. So thank you so much for saying all of that and making us feel like it's not like we're doing something wrong. It's having to do
No.
things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I love that you use the word alignment because it's one of my favorite words to use when working with people, because it's alignment with several different things. So your nervous system, something else I integrate, which I won't get too deep into today, but human design, which is a tool that I use to help people figure out what does alignment look like for them energetically and how to make decisions that are correct for them. And so what I love about what you just shared is, when you recognize that you're in a more stressful state because of work or demands, or it could be not getting enough sleep because you're, staying up too late. I mean, there could be a lot of different things that create that. And when you recalibrate, your circadian rhythm, get that in alignment. When you get your I guess stop people pleasing, stop doing things that don't feel in alignment for you. That also really creates ease in your life, right? And more joy. And you're actually like excited. I'm sure for you, having your own practice, it definitely can be more work. And it's not like it's easier necessarily, but it's yours. It's like your baby and you're loving it. And so that can feel really authentic, and that authenticity is huge. So, I think that that's the part that a lot of women in particular, we're going and we're going and we're going and we're checking the boxes. Okay, I'm eating, I'm going to the gym, I'm being a mom, I'm doing my job, check, 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 check. But we're not pausing and really feeling into, is this what I want? Like, am I even happy? Am I burning the candle at both ends? Where am I getting pleasure and joy in my life? Like, that's such a huge piece of health. And it oftentimes gets put on the back burner because we don't think we can make time for it. Right. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And talking about that, because in doing my little research / stalking, as I say, about what you're doing, in you talking so much about our whole system not being able to heal when we're in chaos, which is part of my sharing my experience, and that we need our nervous system to feel safe. And if you can talk a little bit more about that, of how does that nervous system safety look like in practice, especially for our audience. It's so many of our women who have built their career in that super high alert environment.
Yeah. Well, the thing I love about this is that there's some really simple things that you can do to create that safety. So when we think of the nervous system, a lot of times we think of cortisol, we think of really big stressful events in our life, and we don't think about the day-to-day things that are more subtle that also can be impacting cortisol levels or kind of that low level amount of stress. And so some of the tools that I love to help people navigate that is circadian rhythm alignment. So that alone, when you get the right light at the right times during the day, that sends a signal to your mitochondria, all your cells, your whole body is basically running by this clock. And so when your clock is in alignment, you're making the correct amount of cortisol at the right times. You're getting melatonin made at the right times to help you sleep. All these things then click in. Meal timing is huge. So skipping a meal sends a signal to your body of scarcity, and that releases cortisol. If you don't eat, your body has to go break down stored energy. And so that's a cortisol release. When you are doing your diligence and getting up and going to the gym at 4:30 in the morning on an empty stomach, that's a huge cortisol spike before your body is supposed to be increasing cortisol, right? It's not even light outside yet. So it's all these little tiny kind of micro moments that can affect your nervous system. And so it doesn't have to be this big grandiose. You have to get up and meditate every morning for 30 minutes and, put your water out in the sun for an hour. And like, you don't have to do all these rituals necessarily. It can be just really simple. Go outside as soon as you wake up and get light for 5 minutes. Think about eating and fueling your body in the morning first thing. That helps stabilize your cortisol levels. That helps stabilize your blood sugar. It makes a huge difference. Just those little things alone. I have clients all the time where they're not feeling that 3 o'clock crash. They're not burning out in the afternoon. They're having more sustained energy. Their sleep is better. I've seen it make such a huge difference with just these little tiny things that people implement. So, that is more of a physiological side of things. And then again, that energetic alignment piece is the other part that I bring in, because that plays a role too. So if you're getting up every day and you're going to a job you absolutely hate, and you're working with people that literally just, zap your energy every day and you don't feel good, that's draining. That's going to catch up with you, and your nervous system is taking a toll all day long. If you're managing, right? Even if you're handling it and getting by, it is still costing something on the back end. So there's a cause and effect for everything, and you have to I look at it like, if you don't like the effect that you're getting, we got to go back and look at the causes. We got to work backward to, okay, I don't like this. How do I fix this part of it? And that a lot of times takes more work or more, I think, bigger changes for some people. Like if it's a work situation that is really toxic, or a relationship that's really toxic, yes, those things are big. But more often than not, these little tiny things that you can do will make a huge difference in the meantime.
And I love what you said in when you're managing, because I think that that's the distinction, especially for women in medicine, because the phrase I use is how it's the resiliency that can go against us. Mm-hmm. Because if I say, like, if they take a snapshot of us, we look well, we're checking out the boxes, we're being super productive. And that's sometimes the problem. So I love that you make that distinction of, we cannot use that functioning productivity, checking off boxes as a way to really evaluate if we're doing well. And it's not that necessarily we're doing bad. Again, it's not black and white, but can we feel better? Can we be more available? And thinking also in terms of longevity and the quality of life that we want to live. So thank you for saying it like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you talk, Brooke, about the circadian rhythms and how tiny little incremental changes can create more wins for us. And so I look at it as I think about, I'm always talking about the recipe of our lives, right? More of this, less of that, eliminate this thing, right? Too much salt in the recipe is going to mess things up. And yet many of the women that work in medical fields, if they're a surgeon, if they work an ER shift, if they work night shifts, if they're up on call, many of the factors are out of their control. And some of them have so little energy to try to make change. And so if we think about triaging, right? So in medicine, we're used to thinking triage. What's the highest return on investment? What's the biggest needle mover we can pull on as far as adding or subtracting? So, for me, I was like, okay, I want to be on my best for this podcast. I made sure that I went to bed early, not just last night, not just and the night before, right? How can I lead myself up over the last few days to be my best today? Because I have a day from, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. tonight with very little break. So thinking about, if they're going to put a little bit of effort into something, what's the most important way to add in or course correct when, like, here's the biggest thing that's going to pull you off your game, and here's the least lift that you can do to try to get back on track?
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought up the sleep part of it, because I think that's huge. And then sleep kind of ties to circadian rhythm, right? They're all kind of interlinked there. So, the biggest thing I see, or where I kind of have people start, is and I'll talk just a little bit about circadian rhythm, because I think it's important for people to understand it's not just, the sleep-wake cycle. Yes, that's part of it, but it is very closely tied to literally every single reaction in your body, your mitochondria, your cells, they're all on a clock that syncs up to this master clock. So you have in your brain this master clock, which is it's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus of your brain. And that master clock syncs up with all the cells in your body, all your mitochondria, all your organs. And they are all these peripheral clocks that then sync up to that master clock. So I kind of explain this as your master clock is like air traffic control at an airport. And your cells and everything else going on in the body are kind of all the planes trying to take off and land at that airport. And so if your master clock is off, if you're not getting the right light signal or dark signals at the right times, it's like running an airport with no air traffic control. So back to the chaos, that's chaos in the body. So if you're building a house, your circadian rhythm is the foundation of the house. Your nutrition, your supplements, your exercise, these are the building materials for that house. But you're not going to get very far if you don't have the blueprint of how to build the house, which is what your circadian rhythm is, right? So for me, that's the part where I have people start with, because when you get that dialed in, it helps with your sleep, it helps with your energy, it helps with your hormones, it helps with your digestion. I mean, on and on and on, everything is impacted. So the little things, thinking about, I use blue light blocking glasses. So I'm a huge fan of them. I have 2 pair. These are yellow ones that I wear. They're not very attractive, but I wear them during the day when I'm on Zooms all day long. They block about 60% of the blue light, because that blue light is very disruptive to my circadian rhythm all day. It's telling my body it's noon outside. Whenever you look at a phone or a screen, it tells your body it's noon. So if it's not noon, then your body's getting mixed signals, right? In the evening, when it gets dark, I put on red ones, and I wear these about 2 hours before bed. There's also orange ones that I love, and those ones are really good for as soon as the sun goes down. So you want to kind of think about, before we had electricity, what was that like? When it got dark, we saw by candlelight and fire. And we want to kind of create that and mimic that in our real life, because that is what's going to be natural and give our body that right signal. We need sunlight exposure at certain times, at sunrise, UVA rise, and then we need complete darkness at night in order to make melatonin, which is so important for your health. It's not just about sleep. Actually, 95% of the melatonin you make has nothing to do with sleep. It's an antioxidant, an anti-inflammatory. It is managing so many other things in your body. So to me, even for someone who works odd hours, the glasses can be a way to protect yourself. If you're in a hospital or a clinic or something in the evening late under, artificial lights that are not good for your circadian rhythm, you can wear those glasses to help your body get a different signal, to get the right signal at that time of day. So I use them.
What if you already wear prescription glasses?
So there's little clip-ons that you can put over, and they also sell prescription options. So you can send in your prescription and get a pair that have that built in too.
And you read my mind, because I was going to ask you because I could already hear some of the doctors that we work with in our coaching, that's just like, oh, you don't get it. I take 24-hour call, or I work nights, or my hours are all over the place. So you mentioned a few things, but what else would you say to the skepticism behind those questions?
Well, first of all, there's thousands of studies on circadian rhythm and every aspect of health. So I encourage you to go on PubMed and go look some of those up, because I think that can help have some buy-in. But from a clinical perspective, I've seen a number of clients who, in fact, I had one client, I've been working with her for at least 2 years. She's diabetic. She was waking up at 3 a.m. every single night for, I think, over a year. And I kept bugging her, go outside and watch the sunrise, go outside and watch the sunrise. And she finally did. And literally the very next day was the first time she did not wake up at 3 a.m. So I've seen it do some magical things where your body's always communicating with you, and your symptoms are messages. And so your job is to try to figure out what those messages mean, to decode those messages. And we have to slow down long enough to listen and pay attention to what those symptoms mean. And so, from a sleep perspective, back to someone who's working maybe, late shifts or overnight or things like that, there's a reality to the fact that that is going to disrupt your circadian rhythm. There's no way around that. The studies that are done on shift workers. That's how we get a lot of this information. So what you can do is try to protect yourself by wearing those glasses at certain times. That can be really helpful. Trying to maintain a regular schedule so there's consistency. Getting out and watching the sunrise is really, really helpful because that is what syncs your master clock. The whole master clock at sunrise, within 30 minutes of sunrise, is the initial kind of recalibration that then tells your body how much cortisol to make also. So your whole cortisol output is regulated in the morning. It maxes out about 90 minutes after you've been awake. And so it will, if your cortisol tends to be high in the morning, it will help bring it down. If it tends to be low, it'll help bring it up. So it's kind of bringing it back into homeostasis. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of doing what you can, right? Learning to do what you can. And that's a lot of what the work I do is, okay, here's the situation. How can we make it the best we possibly can? What's within your control that you can do right now? And just starting there.
Well, and you bring up about being exposed to the sunrise for sure. I think there might be some benefits to being exposed to the sunset as well.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a podcast not too long ago, really talking about how much time we spend inside.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about how disconnected we are from nature signals, as you're saying, where's the sun in the sky? Where is it when the sun is coming up? And if we are spending, I can't remember, is it like 90 some percent? Maybe those statistics, but inside exposed to all this artificial light and artificial space. So we're disconnected from nature. So we're not getting the benefits from being in healthy green space around plants and moving, getting fresh air. And the study talked about how simply by was it women in Norway who spent the most time outside, they could be smokers and still be as healthy as the people who were inside and not smokers because of whatever those outdoor effects are. And I can imagine they're multiple, right? The ripple effect of getting more sunlight, getting more vitamin D, getting circadian rhythm set.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see how much time we spend inside and how disruptive that is.
Yeah,
And
it's huge. And, vitamin D is a big topic that I talk to a lot of people about because, the reason we have such a big vitamin D deficiency is because nobody's outside. We never were meant to spend this much time inside. And so the reliance on a supplement to replace the sunshine is, crazy that's what we're trying to do. And so I think it's a matter of understanding we have to work with nature. We have to work with these natural rhythms because that's what our body syncs up to. And so when we get too disconnected from that, then we start to see things go wrong with our health. And again, your body is communicating, hey, we're off track. We're off kilter here. We need to recalibrate back to where we're supposed to be. So I think spending as much time outside as possible is one of the best things you can do for your health. I know living in, I grew up in the Seattle area. And so, living in that climate, especially in the winter, no one wants to be outside. It's very gray. It can be very depressing in the middle of the winter. And in fact, that's the time you actually want to be outside more, because when you get exposed to those infrared lights during the day, even though there's no vitamin D necessarily available, that light is medicine for us during those times of the year. And so bundling up and just going for walks outside every day is one of the best things you can do actually to help with things like seasonal affective disorder. So, we tend to want to just lock up and stay inside, and that just makes things worse at that time of the year. So,
well, and I think of, these women that we're talking about in medicine who have so little time. And I really talk to my clients, habit stack, and I role model that myself. So this morning I got out, I went for a jog, not very long, I went 0.9 miles. My minimum is 0.8 outside. I didn't go to the gym and get on a treadmill because I was like, okay, I've got Brooke on my shoulder. We've worked together for both human design as well as the functional medicine. And you've been a great circadian rhythm coach. I've got even my husband and my 20-year-old son who does not like to go outside, eating breakfast, drinking their coffee on the deck outside. So how can we, take a 5-minute walk outside, moving your body, getting off the screen, if that's all you can do, and that return on investment, when you can do a 5-minute walk outside and getting off the screen, you are doing a win on a win on a win. And then that helps take you through and fill up your tank so much more. You'd be surprised. And can we get better about not all or nothing? Like, oh, I can't go on a 30-minute walk outside during my break. I can hardly eat. Or what if we said, I'm going to have 5 minutes at least to eat something, and I'm going to have 5 minutes to get outside, move my body, and get a little exercise, and maybe invite a friend and socialize. So those tiny little investments can really make big wins. And I think women physicians are surprised.
Yeah.
They had no idea that small investment could give them so much benefit.
Yeah, those little things are huge. And that's, even for example, back to watching the sunrise, in the winter, or if you have a busy day, if you've been consistent with it, you can go out for 3 minutes and get what you need from that sunrise. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. So, I kind of like think of the sun or just the light or being outside as like this recalibration energy source for myself. And so every time I go out, I'm like, ooh, my body's syncing up with the sun, with the light. So it's almost like I get to recharge my battery a little bit every time I go outside. And even if it's only for a couple of minutes, between clients, I try to always pop outside, get some air, put my feet on the grass. That is just so grounding. And it's so good to help the body recalibrate, because every time during the day, we're getting different information. It's basically the light is information for our mitochondria. It's the instructions that tells our body what to do when. So when you go outside, it's like you're getting a little download every time. Like your body's like, okay, cool, got it. Know where we're at, know what we're doing. We can keep going now. So those little tiny moments are really, really important. And I love, people want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They're like, oh, well, I can't do a half hour, so I'm just not going to do it at all. And it's like, well, you can do 5 minutes, and that's better than nothing. So, do what you can.
Yeah, we forget that we can, like Erin always says, like this habit stacking. And I love recommending the walk in the morning. And if you can do it with someone else, you get so many benefits all at once: at the community, the connection, being outside in nature, like the sunrise, the physical movement, like even like active meditation. We can bundle it up. And then if we add to that the intention, and I love how you said, I wrote it down, recalibration, energy source. Is that what you said?
Something like that.
I love it like that. If I can be like, oh yes, this is what I'm doing. Like the intention adds meaning. So it gets recorded with more, more source. I love that.
Oh, I was going to add too. So another thing, back to walking with a friend, even if you don't have someone that you can do that with, I've had friends who, in fact, I have a friend/client who I got her to start getting out and watching the sunrise, and she has an amazing view of the sunrise. And she started waking up and sending me photos of her sunrise. So it was like an accountability thing. So find a friend that you're like, hey, let's both get up and watch the sunrise, and we'll text each other good morning, and we'll send pictures. And then you have like a buddy that you're doing it with, right? So that can be really helpful and make it more enjoyable, especially when you're getting up early or earlier than you're used to. So,
and I think that accountability is so helpful. I've done the same thing with some of my clients. The other piece is, from my understanding, when we hear birds, it triggers our parasympathetic, and the roles are reversed, right? We spend, is it 80% in our sympathetic and 20% in our parasympathetic, and it should be the other way around. So when you are out in nature and you go without earbuds in so you can hear, now you can also listen to the birds. And so that's one more layer to this habit. You hear birds tweeting that says there are no predators. And so again, it tells your body, I am safe. It's like your body, your nervous system going to your brain. And maybe that's going to help if you've got anxiety. Maybe that's going to help if your cortisol is too high. So each of those tiny little changes in the recipe, and it also allows you to be in touch with your own thoughts. I think we're so distracted and so many things competing for our attention that oftentimes I'll go out on my jog without any AirPods in and just make sure I'm creating space to listen to my thoughts and nature and birds.
I recommend that. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. Please do not bring your phone out with you to watch the sunrise. You want to leave it in. You don't want to be looking at a blue screen when you're out trying to watch the sunrise. It kind of defeats the whole point of what you're doing. So try to not have technology, at least if you can not look at technology for 30 minutes after waking up. That's really good. It's a really good goal.
Yeah, so many important things to know, and like you said a few times, it doesn't cost money. It really doesn't take that much time, and it's accessible to all of us. So if your brain is already saying, I don't have time, I don't know, you don't get it, and my kids, I would challenge you to question those thoughts and figure out how to make it, even if it's 5 minutes at a time. So all the good recommendations. And I wanted to ask you something a little bit different in, right, like in as since a lot of our audience are women physicians, and right, like, so we have the knowledge and we're checking off the boxes, and yet we still get burnt out. And it is right, like, and if burnout is not the word that you resonate with, we all have moments when we're extremely overwhelmed, where we feel like the environment is closing us in, we feel like there's no agency, we feel disconnected. And I know that you've shared that you've experienced some of that, and I would love for you to share what were some of the lessons that maybe you could have not learned any other way that you can share with our audience.
Yeah, I went through my own pretty bad burnout after undergraduate school. It was kind of between undergraduate and graduate school. And undergraduate school was very demanding for me. I went back to school late in life, so I was older, and it was just different, right, to be doing that as an adult. And not that it's easy at any point, but I was burning the candle at both ends with, working, or actually I wasn't working at the time, but the school was pretty demanding. So then I got done with school. I was doing an internship and driving about an hour to this internship. And I fully was getting 8 hours of sleep, and driving to this internship, I was falling asleep at the wheel, like scary, shaking my head, couldn't keep my eyes open, falling asleep driving. And it freaked me out. I was like, I don't understand. I literally just slept 8 hours. I don't understand what's happening. And so thankfully I was interning for a functional medicine doctor. So we did a lot of testing and understood I had cortisol dysregulation. I found out I had some methylation things going on. I was deficient in B12. There were some physical things that I was able to work on. Fast forward, when I was introduced to human design, I then learned more about that and my energy type, which is a non-energy type as a projector. And that to me was the huge aha moment where I was like, oh, I could have prevented that if I had understood how to work with my energy. If I would have understood that I can't go, 14-hour days like that consistently, that will burn me out. So I think that lesson taught me so much about understanding what your unique energy is. How does that work for you? And then, what drains your energy, what adds energy to your life, what gives and takes. Because when you understand those buckets, then you can be smart about that and have more boundaries around how you use your time, and using it more effectively so that you're not ending up with this adrenal exhaustion, down the road. So I think, again, there's multiple ways you have to kind of work with this. It's not just, the physical aspect. It also can just be your capacity to actually go at a certain level versus someone else. And I think a lot of times we feel pressure to keep up with the Joneses, keep up with everyone else. And you maybe have a friend who can do all the things and they're, killing it. They look like they're killing it, right? They're a mom and they're working full time and they're social and they're doing all these things and they seem great. Well, they're wired differently than you. They have a totally different, they could be in human design, what's called a manifesting generator, which I describe them as having a fifth gear, so that level of energy versus a non-energy type, totally different. If you try to keep up with them, it's not going to end well. You're going to burn out.
And I would bet, because I didn't know about human design, I'd heard about it, but I didn't really learn much about it until you and I met about 6 or 8 months ago. Mm-hmm. And so for our listener who may have no idea what human design is, and this sounds like a great topic for a future episode, can you give just a little skim of that so they have a little bit of understanding? Because I think a lot of people don't know what that means, a manifesting generator, projector, and such.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm throwing around different terms, but it's basically like a map it's like your energetic DNA blueprint. So it tells you you could be an energy type or a non-energy type. There's 5 different types. So it just helps you understand what kind of energy you have, what is the correct way for you to make decisions. So there's a whole, what's called a strategy and authority, which helps you get in alignment to make decisions that are correct for you. There's a whole bunch of aspects to it, but it's essentially just helping you. It's a map to alignment for what is authentic for you. And it's very unique to you. And so when you understand that, you can work with that energy versus trying to work against it, right? You can recognize different situations where you're like, oh, okay. That's not going to be in alignment for me because my gut is telling me that's a no. I'm getting a no, and it's learning to listen to the no. So it's just kind of those nuances about tuning back into, what's correct for you. So it's kind of a map to that.
I know for me, it helped me understand, again, the projector type. Instead of a manifesting generator, I would go 16, 18-hour days, and I just force myself to do it. And now understanding that's not in alignment with my energy type, that if I'm going to have a long day, I might need to take 10 minutes and do a meditation or get outside in the sunlight and recharge, make sure that I'm fueling instead of working through, because I don't want to work against my energy type another 50 years. I already did that for my first 50 plus years. Yeah. And so it's really given me a lot of insight. And so that's something that, again, we can go in a deeper dive another time, but thanks for helping explain that.
Yeah.
So you also have a framework, Brooke. And again, if you can share with our listener a little bit about that framework, because many women in medicine have been running on MD for years. And how can that help direct them into maybe what the first thing is that they can do that might make a difference for them?
Yeah, so it's called the quantum nourishment framework, and it's essentially bridging, the mind, the body, and the soul, right? It's looking at a whole person and all the different ways that we can nourish our body through those different kind of buckets. So what I've done over the years is I've, blending in functional nutrition, which is what I've been doing for a long time. I've added in circadian rhythm and circadian biology, nervous system regulation, energetic alignment. So these are kind of some of the categories of how I weave that in. And when you kind of approach things from that perspective, then it's just more of a holistic approach that feels more synergistic with what is true and authentic for you. So, we want to make sure we're doing things like nourishing the body with food and getting the right minerals, and those types of things are really important. Hydration, circadian rhythm, we've talked a lot about. That's a big piece of it. Mindset is a huge piece, or working through limiting beliefs or rewiring your brain can also be part of this process. We can get really stuck in some things that are holding us back. And so that part can be really important, especially reframing certain, limiting beliefs that we might have around our health or our wellness. So seeing yourself well is a huge thing I try to teach people. I try to really encourage people not to identify with their diagnosis. When you say I have or I am, your body says, okay, it's neutral. Your body is neutral. So whatever you're repeating and telling it, it's just going to reflect that back. So those simple things, not simple, but practices can be really important for that healing process. And then of course I bring in, human design and energetic alignment with that. But, if you're in survival mode for a long period of time, then eventually you're going to burn out. You're going to, physically, emotionally, spiritually go bankrupt over time. And so this is just an approach that I created that kind of is blending and bringing all these things together so that we're, not all at the same time necessarily tackling those, but they're just the pieces of the puzzle that when I think of what is healthy, what is someone who's nourished and thriving, these are the things that they are embodying. And that's kind of what I focus on with that framework.
So much information. This is like, I'm here, like literally like full page and a half of notes. And I cannot wait to get back to your website, because now hearing you, like I understand so much better all the things that you have in your website, which is so much information there. Thank you. And as you know, the name of our podcast is Create Meaning Medicine, Rewriting the Rules. In what ways have you been creating meaning as a healer or rewriting the rules?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm kind of a rule breaker in general. I've kind of always been that way. And I think I am pushing back on the Band-Aid approach to things. I think there's a lot of shiny objects right now with biohacking and peptides and what I would call manipulating your biochemistry to, get it to do what you want it to do. And I want to instead teach people to trust and listen to the wisdom of their body. I want them to believe that their body has infinite wisdom in its ability to heal itself when we just give it the right conditions. That we don't need these external things necessarily. It's not that there's not a time and a place for them, and I'm not denying that at all, but I think we're missing the basics. We're missing the foundation. And if we get back to that first and we start there and we see where the dust settles when we are really in tune with our body and we're working with it, a lot of times we don't need these other things. They're again, the Band-Aids that we didn't actually need. So I feel like I'm trying to rewrite that. I'm trying to help people think differently about health and think differently about what does it look like to actually be thriving, and that trust in your body. I think so many people are disconnected from their body at this point, and they're just not even listening or tuning into what it's trying to communicate with you. And I think if we just get quiet for a minute and start paying attention and listening to it, the answers are there. The solutions are there. We just have to trust it. So
love that. And Brooke, if somebody would like to find out more about what you do and where to find you on social, where can they find you?
Yeah. So my website is thrivewithbrooke.com. And you can find me on Instagram. It's thrive_with_Brooke. And I have some free resources on my website. You can get a free human design chart and health report if you're interested and curious about that. I have a circadian rhythm product guide where I share recommendations for things like the blue light blocking glasses and light bulbs and different things like that. I have a water resource guide on there. So there's some good free resources. And then I have courses and paid reports and all sorts of stuff too, if you want to dabble in any of that.
Excellent.
And you can work one-on-one with me as well.
Yeah, and which I have. So thank you so much, Brooke, for sharing your wisdom with our listener. And if I were you, I would go check it out, get curious, and stay tuned because our next episode is coming right up.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.